Right, hello and welcome to the Panachecast. This is Panache Software's weekly podcast going through the latest in legal technology. And I'm your host, Peter Davis, and joining me as always is my co-host, Neil Pemberton.
Hi there.
Hi, this is episode 10 of the Panachecast. I was going to say, it's 10 episodes now. Was that more episodes than viewers at the moment? I don't know.
Maybe,
yeah. Who knows?
Could well be. If that's true, that's very disappointing.
It is very disappointing, isn't it? But
where are the groupies?
I don't know. Well, we'll just keep talking to ourselves for a while. We'll
either be taken away in straitjackets for being mad, or maybe we will get some groupies.
Who knows? Or some kind of viewers and stuff.
Yeah, that would be useful.
I'm sure there's a couple of people out there who enjoy it, but we'll see. But well, let's see how this goes. We've got a couple of items today we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about blockchain and whether it can underpin the future of the property market. That's an article by the Land Registry. 7 signs that your law firm's technology is outdated. And the Financial Times top 10 legal tech companies with the greatest impact on the practice and business of law. So before we get into that, though...
let's just run through. I mean, we who would have thought 10 shows in, this is where we'd be. But just to recap briefly, we've covered a lot of stuff about tech news, and we've covered a lot of events in what we've been discussing before. We've had some guests on the show, and we've got some guests lined up for future shows, so keep an eye out for those. And we've even managed to get a live coding session done for you all for last week, so hopefully you've all learned something from that. I know I did. My coding skills are pretty limited, but
luckily there was very little coding required in that session. So that was
so you can get your own chatbot up and running now with 1 line of code. And I think that was the headline basically for us, is that it's quite straightforward and easy for you to get started on some of these things without a lot of tech knowledge. So hopefully you all managed to catch that in last week's show. That's episode number 9. We've had some reader mail about social media and technology for conveyancing solutions, but what we really want to hear is more questions from you, more feedback, comments, whether you agree or disagree with what we're saying. We just want to hear from you as much as possible. Make it your show as well as ours. Whether you've got any technology that you use, success stories or failures, or whether you use no technology, anything goes. And if you're unsure whether you can really comment and you're at a firm where you're not sure whether you're allowed to comment, then post anonymously. We'll keep your name secret if we have to.
Yeah, I mean, we're not looking for massively hard-hitting, risque stories or anything like that. But, it's just an interest for us and for others watching and listening, and just to hear about others' experience in legal tech. What are other people using? How are they finding it? That kind of thing. That's
exactly.
We want to get in touch and keep the conversation going with lots of people to see what people are using out there. Yeah.
So the best way to get in touch with us is through the Patreon page. Patreon is Patreon. Patreon.com/Panache Software. We have up there all of the shows and episodes. As we say, we'll be adding more and more to that as time goes on. Some additional bonus things on there, and that's really a page that we've created so that we hope we can get some following and some support from you out there. If you're feeling particularly generous and your children haven't behaved themselves this week and don't deserve their pocket money, then by all means subscribe for a month.
We're happy to take that pocket money. We have no shame.
Absolutely. But what we'll do, if you subscribe and become a follower on that and take an associate level, we'll send you some branded stash, and we've got a couple of t-shirts to go out to some people. I'll send them out over the next week or so. But follow us on patreon.com/Panache Software.
Cool. Yeah. Well, should we get going then with the first item? So the first item is by Lauren Toombs at the Land Registry, and I think it's something that we might have covered in a previous episode as well. But the Land Registry are doing their big push for their digital street initiative, so they've got another blog post out in the last week or so, which is, could blockchain be the future of the property market? I don't know if you want to take through some of that.
So just a few of the points that they raise in there. This is obviously a drive for them to become, in their own words, the world's leading land registry for speed, simplicity, and an open approach to data. I dare say that simplicity and blockchain don't really go hand in hand, albeit that if you get it working right, then it would be simple for people to use.
Hopefully it can simplify the process. The technology behind might not be simple, but
exactly right.
To the end users, hopefully.
So what they're doing is looking at how they can help people buy and sell property faster and simpler and cheaper and so on, because property transactions they can be really dogged and drawn out for various reasons. And just want to touch on a couple of them. So to quote from them, they say on the 6th of March 2019, the sale of a recently refurbished semi-detached house in Gillingham completed, taking 22 weeks, which was much longer than the 6 weeks the buyer and seller had expected. They then, I think...
They'd obviously never sold a house before.
Never sold a house. And we mentioned offline briefly between ourselves, 6 weeks is an optimistic timescale. It's not to say that it can't be done, but whenever there's a bank involved, there's a delay. Banks don't take views on things the same way that buyers and sellers will. If you fall in love with a house, then you'll put up with its quirks, right? But banks mightn't do that. But a simple conveyancing transaction, when you put your searches in, it's 2 or 3 weeks before those results come back. And those search results have actually got to be looked at. If the conveyancer is doing the job properly, they've got to look at it, and they're almost certainly going to have some questions about it. So then the inquiries are going to be raised and answered. So you're 4 or 5 weeks in before you're really in a position to make your mind up whether you can proceed with the transaction. So 6 weeks is optimistic in my view, but I suspect that 22 weeks is more most people's reality.
And I guess what you're saying is that you feel that, for a lot of these things, the actual transactional bits of that can be streamlined by technology, and other parts of it probably can do as well. Yep. But unless the whole chain is speeded up, if you're still having to get in touch with local authorities and they're taking time to return searches and things like that, that's going to overall slow the whole process down. So until the whole group acts together,
that's exactly right.
Space, then you're still going to hit these delays.
There's a divide, isn't there? So you have the execution part of the transaction, which would be your contract, your transfer, the signing, the transferring of money, the registration of the whole thing, and then there's the investigative due diligence aspect, which can take longer. I suspect that probably is the bit that is maybe being focused on less, but actually will take the longest. And we can come on to how that might look in a bit more detail later. But the Land Registry are obviously much more focused, at least for now, on the execution part, because you can with a contract automation or a smart contract, you can make that execution part faster through their what's it called, the Geo6. They're in touch with Ordnance Survey, and they're collectively starting to work together with Coal Authority and others. Yeah. To share data. And so I think they even mentioned in their blog, in their post about working with HMRC, which would presumably be for the stamp duty, land tax return and filing that you have to do after you've purchased a property and before you can register it at Revenue and Customs, at the Land Registry. So that process is starting to take effect now, and that looks quite good. But the actual due diligence side of things could take a bit longer. Now, we know of some companies out there, and Orbital Witness is one, where they're putting together a platform that allows you to just look at a property, and hopefully that pulls in all the relevant information for you from the Land Registry, from the local authorities, maybe from the Environment Agency, water and drainage companies, so that you can just look at a property and it gives you everything up front. Now, that's a little bit more now. It started to look like a stock market purchase of a share. You can look at the accounts, you can make the information, you can execute the transaction instantly if you want to, and that seems to now be catching property up a bit with that, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's areas to look at in there for organisations, in that if you're beginning to bring all that data together into one place and into these platforms, you have the opportunity that data doesn't then go stale either. So and we've talked about before, if you buy a house, you have all these searches run on it. If you then sell that house a couple of years later, the person buying it has all those same searches run on it again, and things are unlikely to have changed in that time. So by having these platforms that are bringing all that data together, they have the opportunity to be able to guarantee that data for a certain amount of time, and in fact adjust as changes come in, thereby eliminating that need to go through the same process every time. It's a big time waster. Not only is it it's wasting time, and that's probably why the transactions are taking 22 weeks rather than 6. It's also wasting people's money. If you look at any house, I'm talking about routine houses here on housing estates, how likely is it that the water and drainage system has changed since it's been built? It's extremely unlikely. How likely is it that
that it's not connected to the mains water or mains drainage. Extremely unlikely,
especially if it's a new build or something like that. Then
and in a way you think, wouldn't you, that you would get a copy and have a warranty or a guarantee from the developer that everything is hunky dory with those sorts of things, but it doesn't seem to work that way. So it's not just a question of saving time; it's saving people's money as well. And I like the idea of a platform like that, Orbital Witness, that will pull all that information into one place and speed things up. I like
definitely.
And just to conclude on the Land Registry's article, they're 2 years into their digital street program now. They're looking for people to get involved for year 3 and onwards. I suspect they'll be inviting people with good ideas and how they can improve things further to get in touch. So we'll put the link to the article in the notes afterwards.
Yeah, and there's a little sign-up form that you can sign up to try and get involved with that project and input. And I'm sure the more people and the more organisations that are doing that, you can eliminate some of these barriers. Then the more joined up the process is between all of these organisations, the quicker these things can get moved through.
Exactly. If they sign up, they might even get a chance to meet us if we sign up and get onto it. You never know.
Well, if that's not reason enough for people to sign up, I don't know what is. There's no hope, is there?
It's the beginning of the groupies now. So should we move on to Article 2 then?
Yeah, that's good.
This is something that we found in the Financial Times. The title is "LegalTech uses AI to help business help itself." The author was Kat Rutter-Pooley, and again we'll put a note in the show notes after the recording. There's a couple of aspects to this which we wanted to talk to you about. The latter aspect is a list of companies that are providing tech solutions. We'll come on to that in a minute. But the article, to begin with, is focused on the UK Serious Fraud Office and a project that they had on their plate, which was to look into, was it Rolls-Royce? Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about this, I'll just mention a couple of figures. They talked about reviewing 30 million documents that had to be reviewed. I'm not sure I can even fathom what 30 million documents looks like.
And I don't know.
How long it would take to do that
I mean,
manually.
I don't know if this is a case when you have that number of documents. I mean, maybe it also includes things like emails and stuff like that. If it's trawling through emails, there could be millions, couldn't there?
Could be. You do get thousands and thousands of emails on big files, don't you? So wouldn't be surprised, especially if it's something that was going on for several years. But obviously, reviewing of 30 million documents, whether they were one-line documents or contracts, it's a non-starter for a bunch of human beings, I suspect, in terms of the cost of a person doing it and, frankly, the time. I mean, you just never get it done, would you? So,
I mean, I know there's almost a bottomless pit of interns and stuff you could probably get in to look at these things, but I'm sure that doesn't work for everyone.
No, I'm sure there'd be plenty of keen people who would be very happy to not have any sleep during the nights and whatnot, but
just trawling through these docs.
Being human, they'd miss stuff, of course. So anyway, the solution for them was to use an AI solution, which in their case was Raven, RAVN, which has since been acquired by iManage. I think that was a year or two ago. To review all of the documents for them. And it's an interesting idea, this idea of using an AI solution to review documents and where do you even begin? And I think a lot of people out there might be under the impression that you go to Raven, now owned by iManage, and say, can we have this tech solution to review all of these documents and give us the answer? And I don't think it would work like that, would it?
No, I mean, we've in ourselves not used the Raven software, but with any of these AI solutions, a lot of the time and the issues with them are that they take time to train them. You're normally not expected to just buy something off the shelf and it meets all your needs instantly. And I think that's something to be aware of when looking to purchase these solutions and looking to use them in-house, is that they're going to take some time to train. That's not a downside to them. These pieces of software are hugely powerful in what they can do, but there is that initial upfront task of teaching them the information. A lot of the platforms that are available, people have used the Watson platform, IBM's Watson platform and stuff. Those things are fantastic for these kind of natural language interpretation of documents and all that kind of stuff. But they take time to train, and they also can take time to train on different items. So if you're training an AI to look for, fraudulent information and those kind of terms and that kind of information. If you then want to get it to look at some other documents and provide analysis on something else, you may have to retrain it. You may have to give it another load of documents and go through that. So it's just that being aware that these things, although you can buy them, they're probably not going to take work off the shelf. You're going to have to put the effort in to get them working for you.
Yeah. So you're still going to be an early adopter of these things, and not certainly by any means a finished product. At least we don't believe that to be the case. And I guess from what you said, it's as much about asking the right questions and phrasing things in the right way to get the right answer out. And that is in itself quite a hard challenge, because you never know what you're looking for. In a case like that, maybe they're looking for something very specific and their whole case is built on one thing. I don't know. But if you're using artificial intelligence solutions for due diligence exercise, for example, where, again, you don't know what you're looking for, you just want to see that everything is okay and you have a definition of what okay is for you, that's extremely hard to ask the question, especially across a whole sphere of things like employment contracts and whether people are on appropriate terms, whether the properties contain onerous lease terms or anything like that. Or whether the corporation is properly incorporated, whether they've done anything wrong in their articles and constitution, all sorts of weird things like that, whether they've entered into any contracts which they're in breach of. A whole host of questions that could be asked, and tax questions. I mean, the list is endless almost, and it's not saying review this and tell me everything satisfies these criteria. It would actually mean asking very specific questions and working with the AI solution to sort of interpret the information yourself.
Yeah, and you can get a some insight into this if you want to go back and look at our previous episode last week, where we took a FAQ document and we turned that into a chatbot using Microsoft's cognitive AI services. You'll notice on there that when you're building your knowledge base of questions and answers, you have the ability to provide alternative phrasing for the questions and things like that, because you may find that although there's a lot of built in where it will correctly interpret different ways of asking the question to deliver the same answer, sometimes it will get that wrong. And when it does get that wrong, you can train it by providing that alternative phrase and say, when someone asks this is the answer I expect. And most of these AI solutions work in the same way, in that you say, we're looking for this information and this is the type of phrasing, the type of terminology that we're expecting. And it will do lots of magic around the edges of there to find stuff that you didn't specifically tell it to look for. But at the end of the day, you are having to give it that initial hint and that initial bit of information to get it going. And I imagine that's what they did in these instances. They're looking for a very specific, or they're looking for specific things in those documents. So they will be training it to do that for their next project. And they mentioned in here that they had additional projects coming up where they had upwards of 100 million documents and things like that. If they're looking for different things, they may have to retrain the software to look for more detailed things. So it's being aware that that's something you have to do when you take these products. You've
almost got to be prepared to shape the funnel yourself, haven't you? If the system is going through and identifying things, you have to be willing to put the sides to the funnel up and focus the information down to the spout, if you like. And the more information you're looking at, the bigger the funnel is to get through. So it's very much an interactive process, I think.
And once you've done that training and stuff, once it's up to speed, these things should whiz through these numbers of documents and do that thing. The end result and the end time savings will be huge on using these kind of solutions, but you do have to put some legwork in first. They're not going to just work out of the box.
No. I mean, so in terms of considerations, if you're looking at the AI platforms, it isn't necessarily a guarantee, I suppose, that older ones are going to be better. I wouldn't suggest that for a minute, but it may be that they've been through more iterations of these sorts of things. They may be more capable. They've been around longer. They've been trained longer. That might be a factor to look at when considering.
And their understanding of how they train them is much better, so that those things can be done a lot quicker.
So we look at the second half of the article then. So not to go into too much detail about these, but the article put together a list of the top 10 legal tech companies with the greatest impact on practice and the business of law. Doesn't say how that was assessed as such, but we'll read through their list because it's an interesting looking list anyway. So number 1, Relativity, founded in 2001. The core business is providing technology to support litigation, investigations, freedom of information requests. Its technology is now also used by lawyers to store, index, and search documents of all types and to automate contract review, due diligence, and regulatory work. Built on an open platform, it allows users to create new applications for a variety of uses. Freedom of information requests could be quite a significant one. I know that they take a long time to look into for people, especially when they're trawling through all kinds of things, and it's very easy to raise a freedom of information request. So that looks useful. Yeah. Number 2, Aptus, that's APTTUS, founded in 2006, manages the sales life cycle from start to finish, or quote to cash, as they say. Number 3, Everlaw, founded in 2011, used by firms and companies and the US State Attorney General offices to manage litigation and e-discovery. Number 4, HiQ, we've heard of them before, founded in 2001. Their software can be used to configure for uses ranging from file sharing and client extranets to complex workflow management and automating legal processes. iManage, who we mentioned, they're at number 5, founded in 1998. They were the ones that bought Raven. Document and email management that was recently augmented with Raven's artificial intelligence and, how do you pronounce that, Allegrity's risk and compliance technology. Maybe I'll just whiz through the rest of them fairly quickly. 6, Intap, founded in 2000. They do a lot of things, including time recording and automating of financial processes. Kira Systems, founded in 2010, quite a new one by standard. AI solution technology to automate contract reviews and analysis. So, compare them to iManage's Raven solution and others. Number 8, Mitratech, founded in 1987.
So gosh, not quite as new old on the market.
That's probably older than some of our viewers.
Well, yeah.
Software to manage legal processes, operations, policies, and data. Number 9, Neota Logic, founded in 2010, another new one. Expert system technology that can be configured by the law firm, financial services, and increasingly company clients to automate legal services. That doesn't really tell you too much about it, so maybe you want to look at it in more detail. And then number 10, last but not least, Thomson Reuters. Now, doesn't say when they were founded, but they've been around for a long time. And it talks specifically about the Contract Express tool, which it says is easily configured to automate drafting contracts or other documents. I'm not sure how easy it is to do that, but that's just one of many packages that Thomson Reuters has. They obviously, and someone like Intap and iManage, by the looks of their acquisition history, are going to have several things to look at. So although it's a list of 10 and it talks about solutions, it's really a list of 10 companies doing interesting things, and some of them will overlap. Most of them will overlap in some way. Yeah, and
that's why we wanted. One of the reasons we wanted to put this article in there is to give you some of the names of the people who are doing these kind of things, to give you a place to start and to look if you're looking to get some of these solutions in house and things like that. Have a look at these lists. Have a look and see what they're doing. And as Neil said, Thomson Reuters. It mentions Contract Express as the biggie package, but they do a huge amount of work. Thomson Reuters, they've got a huge amount of packages that you can now use, and they're all integrated together. So there may be multiple things that you can look at and begin using.
And I think when you just hit the nail on the head there when you talked about integration of the packages. I mean, that's something that we've mentioned a couple of times before. When there's confusion as to what might suit you best, I think probably the biggest question for me is, well, for which platform will give you, or which company will give you most bang for your buck. And really, if you're wasting time switching between different solutions, that's not ideal. And so the more integrated these solutions are, obviously, the better. That's a big question. I think that would be, for me, cost is always an issue. But we've also talked before about spending money where it's appropriate to do so. And for me, the integration point is almost as important, if not more important, than the cost.
Yeah, and from my experience in the software that I've worked with previously, and the organisations that I've worked with previously, integration is a huge thing. Everyone's got multiple systems. Everyone needs them talking to each other. And it's something that you should really look into when you're buying these solutions. And also pay close attention to the organisations that supply multiple pieces of software when they talk about the integrations between their own pieces of software.
Yes.
Because what you quite often find is a lot of these organizations, they build up their product portfolio by buying other companies and absorbing their products. And what you'll often find is they will give the impression that all of their solutions are fully integrated, when in fact there's a little bit of smoke and mirrors around the outside as to how some of them fit together. So when you actually look at these kind of things, do your proper due diligence on how they actually integrate and how easy those integrations are, even when you're buying multiple products from the same provider, and really ask the difficult questions around that.
It would be very easy, wouldn't it, for them to say, we've got all these different solutions to do all these different things, and yes, they're integrated, and here's a very cheap price for you. And if you're not really fully sure on how the integrations work and how well the systems work together, you could quickly find yourself spending a lot more
on sort of professional services and stuff to get people to set up those integrations. So.
And it may be, the cheapest is not necessarily the best in that sense. And, so just be careful on that.
Just do your due diligence on them and, ask the difficult questions of these providers and
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so should we move on to item number 3? Did you want to take us through that one?
Yeah, so this is our final item on the list. This was a item on Law Technology Today by Lucy Taylor, and this is 7 signs your law firm's technology is outdated. I'm guessing that a few of these I'm hoping aren't actually that relevant these days.
You don't be surprised.
But, I haven't walked around some law offices recently, but just her list of 7 to start with is... Number 1, your monitors are heavy, which would imply you've got some old CRT monitors in there, and if you do still have those, then you probably are a little behind the times.
Just a flashing green icon.
Yes, definitely. You may want to look at some new solutions if you're using something like that. Number 2, you still have tons of filing cabinets. I imagine that's a given in most organisations. Number 3, you aren't automating anything. Number 4, it takes a long time to help clients, whether that's on purpose or not. I know you guys charge by the hour, so sometimes you might want to delay.
Slander the
profession. Yeah, I shouldn't do that really. Number 5, you frequently deal with tech support problems. I think that's going to be an issue even if you are using the latest tech. Number 6, your warranties or support arrangements are out of date. And number 7, your employees would rather use their own devices. And there's a couple on there. One of the key ones I'd like to pick out is the ability for your employees to use their own devices. That is something that is a lot more organisations are being open to now. Because quite often you find that people have phones and laptops and stuff which are better than they might get through their organisation. And I won't say it's completely gone, but in theory, gone are the days when you can't take someone's own device like their own phone and use it for work purposes. There's a huge amount of software solutions now provided by people like Microsoft and Citrix and all these organizations that allow you to provision someone's own device for use in a corporate organization. And I'm aware of other people who, especially on Android phones and stuff, who are able to use them in a work mode and in a personal mode. So you're not mixing the two. And when it's in work mode, it's protected by all of the work VPNs and all the other kind of access. And then it drops out of that when you use it in a personal mode. In most organizations, things like IT are being outsourced. So previously, these kind of things were a real headache for your in-house IT department. Now, with big organizations, even people like Microsoft offering managed desktop solutions, which we talked about in I think episode 8 with was it Slater
and Gordon?
Slater and Gordon. They were using the new Microsoft managed desktop solution. They have ways of provisioning machines and ensuring that security on the machines is kept up to date, even if it's not supplied by the work organization. I like the idea of having half the number of phones, because if you're using your own stuff, then you're carrying around your own phone and work phone, and I'd expect many people will carry around laptops with them necessarily, not their own personal one anyway. But half the radiation from half the number of phones, it's a health benefit maybe, and not too much strain on your jacket pockets. But what I don't like about it, and maybe this is me being
paranoid is I don't like the idea of a firm's equipment being on my stuff and not necessarily having control over what that means. And maybe I've watched The Firm with Tom Cruise too many times, and I'm reading bad things into it. But you know what happens when you put something onto your phone. It gives you the license agreement, which you can read if you want to, but you can't change it, right? So you just click accept because there's no other way of doing it. And I'm less comfortable with that personally.
I can imagine so, and I think a lot of people will be, in that the fear of letting work take over your own personal device and then monitoring what you're doing on that out of work hours will be a major concern to people. But it's pointing out that this technology is coming, and you are able to do this kind of thing, and it could potentially look down as a cost saving for firms if they don't have to supply people with a phone. Then that's a saving for you.
And also, I think most employers now of any reasonable size get like Groupon type discounts, whatever they're called nowadays, don't they? Where they can get bulk discounted for their bulk purchase discounts for their staff, and so you can probably get yourself a cheap iPhone deal or Android or something through Works discounts. And
I think as well that this shouldn't necessarily always refer to you using your own personal device. It's potentially also offering the member of staff the opportunity to purchase the device that they want to use for work. So rather than you as a organization buying 100 laptops from Dell or another provider, instead you can offer your employees a range of laptops and ask them, choose the one that best suits your needs. You may want a smaller, lightweight laptop if you're a salesperson on the road. If you're a developer in-house, you may want something with a bit more power and something that's heavier. You don't care about that portability. So it's the opportunity for you as an organization to say, rather than us saying, here's your laptop, instead you're saying, choose the one out of this range, and it will just be easily provisioned for you when it arrives. I think that's one of the big points of this. It's not necessarily always just users using their own devices. It's also giving people the flexibility to choose what they want.
Yeah, no, that's true. I want to talk about the monitors one.
The monitor, you want to go back to the monitors
because I don't think there would be anybody with a sort of 6-inch deep monitor on their desk. I really hope not. Anyway, but
I don't think most modern PCs can drive a old CRT monitor anymore. So it's,
maybe they're still using the old PCs.
Well, that wouldn't surprise me in some places.
Windows 97 on them or something, but. Actually, on a serious note, monitors. I mean, you've got a very swanky new monitor for your desk upstairs, haven't you? And I was talking to a friend of ours who's re-kitted his work office with not 2 monitors, but monitors which are 3 or 4 feet wide. So, and they're really fantastic. You can have lots of things on the screen at once, and I remember thinking when I had a normal but thin monitor and just one of them, thinking when the firm upgraded to 2 monitors, thinking, well, I just don't need 2 monitors. I get on fine. But naturally, when you get 2, you think, well, how did I ever live with 1?
Yeah.
So I don't know whether they'll put 3 on my desk and then I'll say, how did I ever live with 2? But it is very useful, and it's not difficult to do it. It's not that expensive to do it. And actually, it might remove some of those filing cabinets that she mentions at point number 2, if you can see more than one thing on your screen at once. Because I think if you dive a bit deeper into her article, she mentions somewhere about sometimes it's as easy to go into a filing cabinet and find what you're looking for as it is to go into the system. Well, that's certainly true maybe on a live file when you're in the office and but obviously if you're working remotely, that's not true. And if you're looking for an archived file that's been off-site somewhere, then you really ought to be able to find the information more quickly. But neither of those are particularly revolutionary ideas, but yet they're simple and quick and easy fixes to do. So if you've got 1 monitor, maybe consider using 2 or a wider or whatever. Give yourself the best chance with decent hardware. I
think it goes back to something we mentioned a couple of episodes ago as well. It's not necessarily looking to skimp on the IT hardware that you buy your staff. Yes, it's an easy way to save costs and stuff to buy the cheaper software, the cheaper hardware and things like that. But actually, your staff I would suggest in almost every organisation now probably spend 90 to 100% of the day at their computer doing stuff.
Yeah.
And if they're wasting time from their machine's slow, they can't open many documents because they've got small monitors, so they're having to print stuff out so they can read it in one hand and type on the other. Yeah. By investing in this IT infrastructure, in this hardware and software, and giving your people the best you can, their productivity will increase.
Yeah,
and it can be a huge benefit to people. So it's something, if you have any of these issues, if this stuff is, your technology is creaking now, look at improving, look at getting the best you can for your people.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Okay, shall we move on to events?
Yep.
First of all, we'll mention what they are in a minute, but one thing just to say at the beginning is if there's anybody out there that wants to advertise their event for our 10 viewers, I think maybe 9 viewers that we've got.
9 viewers or so, something like that.
We get a lot more hits on some pages than others, but if there's anybody out there who wants to advertise an event through us, then tell us about it and we'll raise it for you.
Yeah, we'll just put it in.
Yeah, there are groups that you can go to, meetups, that sort of thing. But just to mention the two that we've got for you this week, the one we mentioned a couple of weeks ago is the SRA Innovate. That's on Wednesday this week, the 5th of June, and we mentioned that was in Leeds. I won't repeat what they're talking about because it'll be in the notes, and we mentioned it in week 8, but they've now confirmed their venue for Birmingham if you can't make Wednesday the 5th of June. It's in Birmingham on Thursday the 4th of July at the Studio, 7 Cannon Street in Birmingham. So the SRA will be talking about a lot of tech stuff, and you can go along and catch up with them. And then item number 2, the Artificial Intelligence in the Legal Services Summit. That's Tuesday the 4th of June. It's a whole day, 8:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. That's 1 America Square, 17 Crossrail in London. A couple of interesting keynote speakers. David Gork, MP, Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice, and Christina Blacklaws, the President of the Law Society and Chair of Technology and Law Commission Society. They'll be talking about the potential for AI, algorithms in the justice system, and the state of play in ethics and future outlook. Wider societal impacts of AI and its future. Don't know what that will be focusing on specifically, but future skills and job requirements. Now that could be interesting because I think everybody's worried that AI is going to make them redundant. Well, you could go along there and figure out whether that's true or what you might do if it is going to make you redundant. But not just law, but in accountancy and banking as well, who may be some of your clients. And the future of legal practice and the firm of the future, organizational business model implications for firms. So that is Tuesday the 4th of June, 1 America Square in London. Those 2 events for you.
Great.
Yeah.
So as Neil said, if you've got any events that you want us to mention to people, or alternatively, you want to give us some feedback on the things we've been talking about, drop us a line at probably our email address at panachecast@panachesoftware.com is great for anything you want us to talk about, or just give us some input onto what your thoughts are on some of the items we've discussed, and if they differ from what we're saying, then we'd love to hear that.
We had one, didn't we, from Oliver, who said he listens to his podcasts on Acast and SoundCloud. Now, I'd never heard of either of those personally, although having looked at them, then I think we can get onto at least one of them. But we'll have a look into that. But great, we mentioned that before. If you listen to something in one particular, or your preference is to listen to it in one particular place, and we're not on there, let us know, and we'll do our best to add it for you. Yeah,
just to give it as wide an audience as possible, really.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's it for this week, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so, Yeah, so as I said, go back and check out last week's episode if you want to. It was a bit of a different episode for us, where we actually went through a full example of turning an FAQ document that you may have on your website into a fully functional chatbot without having to use any of code, and that was using Microsoft's cognitive services, and we want to expand on that in future weeks as well, and do some other episodes on those kind of tools that you can use to at least have a look at what can be done with these solutions. You may not necessarily go live with anything you're producing on there, but it may give you some info as to how they work, so that when you are looking at these other firms who are offering AI solutions and document automation solutions. It might give you an insight into how those actually work.
Yeah.
So yeah, go and have a look at those, and we're planning to do a few more in future episodes.
For me, I really like I like the chatbot itself. I think it's a nice, neat little quirky feature for websites. As I think we mentioned last time, there are relatively few firms that have that sort of feature on their website. And we did a pricing example in the context of the SRA rules on pricing. It was a straightforward example, but it looks nice and it was easily and quickly done. What I like though is the promise of what that sort of thing can bring, and hopefully we'll talk about that and how it will integrate with other features and functions that will really allow you to start automating lots of stuff, as Pete just mentioned. So it's the promise of that episode which I think gives me the most satisfaction. Yeah,
so go and have a look, and if you've got any ideas for things that you'd like us to have a look at, then we can put something together and share out the knowledge a bit, because I think a lot of this stuff is assumed to be difficult, or people just don't understand how it works, and we'd like to get that knowledge out there and show you actually you can start looking at this stuff, you can do it yourself, and understand how it all works.
Yeah, any queries, then get in touch with us and we'll be happy to talk it through.
Let us know.
Yeah.
But until next week, we'll call it a day.
Yep. See you then.
Thanks, Em. Bye.
Bye.